So we're still here with Father Brian Eckrich. He joined us for an episode of Regular Catholic Views. This is our bonus episode. Ooh, so fancy. This is your second bonus episode.
It is.
You are fancy. No one has more than one.
You usually have too much to say.
That might be true. No. So we were talking about the love of friendship, can men and women be friends? And there was a little piece that Father Eckrich didn't get to talk about. And because it's about a topic that we're going to be addressing in an upcoming issue of the Bishop's Bulletin, we thought we should talk about this a little bit. And it's really on the complementarity of man and woman together. So, Father, I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay. So in the original Catholic Views episode, we talked about, yes, men and women can and should be friends, and like, how do we accomplish that so it remains in virtue? But ultimately, I guess, considering the end of that, we really didn't talk about like, why should men and women be friends? Right. And so that's why I thought, this is important to maybe elaborate on this. So one of the things, as I mentioned that at the end of that episode, that Dietrich von Hildebrand, that German philosopher and theologian, great Catholic, he wrote this book titled Man and Woman, where he talks about the complementarity between man, what is the masculine genius, and then what is the feminine genius. How is it that God has made each of us unique? And how does that work together? And he notes, I was going to quote this, he said, in talking about how men and women should be friends, he said, "Whoever penetrates deeply into the spiritual nature of the masculine and feminine sees the specific design of both for each other. Man and woman have a purely spiritual mission towards each other and enrich each other in a way that is not possible with the same sex." I didn't quote that. I don't have a quote here, but he goes on to say that the complementarity between man and woman, that men are able to see things in women that women left to themselves would not be able to recognize in themselves.
Right.
And that women can see things in men that men left to themselves could not realize in themselves.
Right.
And so what that does then is, and this is sometimes the challenge of friendships and marriages, perhaps you can see each other's faults, and you correct those inimical tendencies, those bad tendencies. And sometimes that's a struggle. That's the difficulty of marriage and friendship. You might butt heads sometimes, but hopefully in the end, then that helps you come out better. But then ultimately, on the positive side, you can see the other in a way that enlivens particular virtues in the other sex that would, left to themselves, go unawakened.
Right.
And so I thought it might be beneficial to just consider, like, what are those specific virtues? Like, what virtues are awakened in each of the sexes when they are friends with each other?
Right.
And that actually, I was putting a lot of thought into that and talked to some of the friends of my own. Yeah. And we can speak about it on a very general level, looking at man and woman, even going back to Genesis, where the charism, the masculine genius of Adam was that he was ordered towards creation, towards things. We recognize that men like to build things, have master of the world, perhaps maybe have a kind of an objective view more of the facts of things. We're very blunt, perhaps more stoic. And then he said the feminine genius, that Eve, her entire worldview came literally from Adam, that she is always, her Adam was always in her view. So the feminine genius, that women are more typically ordered towards human relationships, towards empathy, towards, I guess, emotion, and that's a good thing. And so that's kind of on a broad category, like, okay, how do these two things work together? Men are ordered towards things and women are ordered towards people. That's one way to talk about on a basic level, on a very broad level. But then I suppose the virtues that are awakened obviously then necessarily pertain to our individuality, like our individual personalities. And this is where I suppose I could give maybe more specific examples between myself, and perhaps even if you wanted to share something, obviously you're married, how is it that your husband has helped you grow in particular ways?
Yeah.
I know for me, one of the ways in which, so I do have, God has blessed me with a few women that I've become good friends with, and it's good and virtuous and upright friendships.
Right.
And this friend, I was talking with her in the last couple of days, and I actually just asked her this question, like, okay, we've been friends. How do you see it that we've helped each other grow? And it was interesting to note that, like, I have a more kind of personality of strategic thinking. I'm analytical. I kind of maybe have that chemistry sort of engineering mindset. So that's me. But then she, like, her strongest attribute, personality is empathy. That she recognizes very easily people's feelings and what they're thinking. And I noted, like, I'm in my analytical thinking, like, I am not an empathetic person. Like, I just, like, say things like, this is just matter of fact. Like, here it is. There you go. You can deal with it. And she may come in and be like, actually, you said that, and that was good in itself, but you got to take into consideration the human element. I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that I accidentally offended that person. And like, I need to take a step back. And so that's kind of one example in my own life. Right. And then maybe perhaps for her, like, if she's kind of getting almost too caught up in the complexities of human relationships, the drama of life, or I can be like, okay, well, actually, you kind of missed these points. Like, well, there's this objective fact and this the facts of the matter, and actually, it's not as complicated as I think we can. So we can help
kind of pull her out of the feeling part and see things objectively a little bit more.
Yeah, and so that's one thing I was specific in my own life that I was considering, but. So that's me. Yeah. I don't know. I guess you're married. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, and you asked me this question before we started, and I thought of one, but you actually thought of a different one now, which is good. So this will be a surprise to you. So for my husband, Ryan, and I, we've been together a long time, and we've been married almost 21 years this summer, actually in a couple weeks. We don't have any kids. We didn't know we weren't going to have any kids. We didn't know that was going to be a problem down the road. But I am more like you. Like, I'm more of a strategic thinker, more objective, very blunt person for the most part. And he can be the same way, but he actually probably has more empathy than I do in a lot of ways. But what being married and having that spouse, obviously the opposite sex, has helped me to grow as a caretaker, if that makes sense, because I'm taking care of my husband. So the more feminine pieces of me have come out more. The relationship, the empathy, the taking care of, rather than, it was just not as much. So those pieces of me, those parts of my personality and so on have come out more as we've been married. Yeah. So that's how, like, he has made me a better, more well-rounded person in that way. I don't know if I've done anything for him, but he's still alive. He eats every day and has clothes. So.
I suppose we'd have to bring him in here.
Right. I would let him speak for himself. But that would be an example of how that's been for us.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. Yeah. I'm glad you have that. Yes. You're able to have that.
Yeah. And I would say that I wouldn't, when you kind of describe that, I don't really have girlfriends who can do that. Not in the same way, not because you don't really care for your girlfriends in the same way. They already take care of themselves. But your husband is a whole different thing because of the different sexes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there we go. That's a couple examples. And I guess we might note to anyone listening, obviously these are specific to us, but then you have to obviously, like I said, this is a difficult question to answer because each one of us has a very different personality. Right. And, different circumstances in life. So what virtues are going to be enlivened in you? I don't know. That's something, and that is something I think encourage people, like, pray and think about this. Like, be intentional in your friendships. It's like, ask the question, like I did to my friend. It's like, how do we help each other grow? Right. What does that look like? Right. And that's another way then you can actually strengthen the bond of virtue, is you have to actually have the awareness of, be able to recognize and acknowledge where's the virtue at?
Right, right.
So
That's very good stuff, Father.
that's about, I think, all I got.
Okay. You know what? I'm glad we went through that because that was really helpful to understand. So
Yeah.
good. I hope you will check out, I believe it's going to be the August issue that story will be in on the complementarity. We've had the June issue had a feminine genius story. July will have a story about the masculine genius, and we have the complementarity coming in August. So the three are kind of meant to be read all together at some point, but I hope that they will help people really understand how this is supposed to work. So thanks again, Father Eckrich. I really appreciate it.
It's always good to be here.
All right.
Godspeed.
All right. That is it. Thanks for joining us for that piece.